up, Taiwan? I'm Yvonne, Young News from here in Taiwan and around the world. A major security forum in Taipei is bringing together officials, experts, and scholars from 10 countries, including former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is visiting the country for the first time. Ellen Liu was there and has this report.
Here in Taipei, officials and experts from around the world are gathering to discuss Taiwan's security and resilience. This comes as China and Russia are hosting their joint naval drills in the region. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te opened the 2025 Ketagalan Forum by highlighting the country's ongoing efforts to strengthen its national defense.
We are continuing to reform and invest even more resources in our national defense. Next year's defense budget will reach a target of over 3% of GDP to boost Taiwan's self-defense capabilities.
The annual forum, now in its fourth year, is emphasizing China's ramping up of gray zone warfare. Beijing has increasingly been using coercive tactics against Taiwan by cutting off undersea cables near Taiwan, sending jets and vessels into the country's air defense identification zone, and launching disinformation campaigns. Because gray zone warfare is often an incremental process, experts say democracy facing these kind of threats may not realize the danger right away.
How do we know when something is systematic and when the instigator behind it is a hostile state? We may not know until it reaches a very high level of intensity, and by then it may be too late.
In light of these threats, former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson called for greater international support for Taiwan.
All they're asking for is the right to be left in peace as a free, democratic country and not bullied or coerced.
A message shared by many participants at this year's forum. Amid growing pressure from authoritarian regimes, democracies across the Indo-Pacific are looking at how to step up efforts to boost deterrence and push back against coercion. Alex Chen and Alan Liu for TaiwanPlus.
Several U.S. lawmakers have asked the Trump administration to allow Taiwan President Lai Ching-te to transit through the United States. 3 House Democrats made a request in a letter to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. They say the reported decision by the Trump administration to block Lai's stopovers sends a dangerous signal to Beijing. The Financial Times reported last week that the U.S. denied Lai permission to transit through New York after China raised objections. In light of these potential changes in Washington's policy on Taiwan stopovers in the United States, our reporter Cadence Quaranta spoke with Alex Gray, former Chief of Staff of the U.S. National Security Council during Trump's first term.
I want to zoom in on one issue that's gotten a lot of attention lately, which is a trip that Taiwan President Lai Ching-te was reportedly supposed to take to visit Latin American allies with reportedly stopovers in the U.S. along the way. Last week, many international media outlets reported that that trip was called off after the U.S. denied Lai the ability to stop over in New York on the way there over objections from China. Based on your experience working in the White House, I'm wondering how likely this is that happened and what your thoughts are on this apparent decision.
Yeah, well, look, we should look, one, historically, that President Trump did more than any American president to strengthen the high-level exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan. What I would say is, a lot of this is reporting, anonymous reporting that's playing out in the media. It's a gift to the Chinese Communist Party to have this type of he said, she said speculation. We don't know the details. I would encourage my Taiwanese friends not to focus unduly on reported trip cancellations and these types of details. We play right into the hands of the CCP when we overly analyze these things and we allow them to use this as propaganda to try and divide the United States from Taiwan.
Given that Taiwanese presidents have made stopovers in the U.S. before, including during Trump's first term, some experts have suggested this could indicate a change or a softening of U.S. policy towards China, especially given reports that Taiwan's defense minister was also supposed to go to the U.S. in June for meetings with high-level Pentagon officials, but that was also postponed because of objections from China. So I'm wondering what you think of this. Do you think Trump is warming up or softening his policies toward China?
Look, President Trump is the first president in American history to declare unambiguously that our foremost national security threat is the PRC. I think when his national security strategy comes out later this year, it's going to reaffirm and even deepen his public commitment to making the organizing principle of U.S. national security policy the China threat. I have no reason to think, and I'm very confident, that the president is not changing his understanding and his approach to China at the strategic level. In terms of how the United States is positioned toward China, I think you're going to see the type of continuity from the president's first term, where we continue to harden ourselves and work with our partners to harden themselves against this extraordinary threat that we face from the CCP.
A central goal for Taiwan right now in the U.S.-Taiwan relationship is to achieve a favorable tariff rate. Having worked with Trump and in the Trump administration, I'm wondering, what do you think it will take for Taiwan to make a reasonable deal with Trump on tariffs? And do you expect that the deal will require large amounts of investment from Taiwan or other compromises?
One, investment's important, and we've seen Korea, Japan commit to make substantial investments, and I do think the president wants to use these negotiations partially to get that type of investment in the United States. But there's a more, I think from the Taiwanese perspective, there's a truth here that may not be comfortable, but we need to acknowledge it, which is the president has a fundamentally different view of the world trading system than has prevailed for a long time. I think that this is less about specific things Taiwan can do than the fact that the American people want to reindustrialize. We want a higher tariff in order to promote reindustrialization in the United States. Yes, the president uses these negotiations as leverage and bargaining, but up to a certain point. I think my main point here is that the president at a certain level is going to stop negotiating, and there's going to be a very high tariff, and that's going to stay for a long time. And so I think
that was Alex Gray, former Chief of Staff of the U.S. National Security Council. Taiwan's Coast Guard faced off against a Chinese Coast Guard ship near the contested Tariffs Island.
呼叫中国海警船3102尽速离开我方水域，否则我船将依法采取必要行动。
The standoff lasted about 22 hours, with the two vessels at one point coming within 1 nautical mile of each other. The Chinese ship disabled its identification system for a period in what officials here consider to be a test of Taiwan's response measures. In recent months, Chinese Coast Guard ships have repeatedly entered restricted waters around Taiwan's offshore islands. Analysts say the military needs to boost surveillance against Chinese incursions.
因为我们现在陆战队，它目前的角色比较都是在本岛进行这样作为。那未来是不是说仍然要让它保留或恢复这样子的一个海上的这样子一个突击的能力后？
Tariffs Island, also known as Dongsha Island, is claimed by both Taiwan and China, but is administered by Taiwan. 4 more local officials could be stripped of their positions after they were found to hold Chinese nationality. The government has defended the move, but the officials involved say they're deeply integrated in their communities and that China won't let them renounce their citizenship. John Van Trieste reports.
Until last Friday, Deng Wanhua was the village warden of Xuetian in eastern Taiwan. But she's one of 5 local officials removed or set for removal after an audit found they hold Chinese citizenship. Deng is angry and plans to appeal. She's been in Taiwan nearly 30 years, setting down roots and lately caring for her terminally ill Taiwanese husband. And she says there's no way to renounce her Chinese nationality, even if she tried. China claims Taiwan and doesn't recognize a Taiwanese citizenship.
因为你一旦开了，就表示你承认台湾是独立的了。谁会给你开这个东西啊？如果他今天我这个搞成了，就表示陆配以后都不能参政了。
It's a frustration a fellow China-born local official in Taipei shares.
我们已经努力过了，我今年2月要去办，大陆不给办嘛，你现在就是硬性的要叫我们去注销国籍，那我们就是有通天的本领也办不下来。
But the Interior Ministry says it's a matter of ensuring loyalty to the country and preventing conflicts of interest. TaiwanPlus reached out to the Interior Ministry for comment, but did not receive a reply. Most of the cities where these officials have posts are still coming up with an action plan.
有关里长国籍疑义案，现能由松山区公所查民众，但对于查询国籍有其困难，会依个案情形研议处理方式。
市府已经启动相关调查程序，其中里长减负放弃国籍的文件上有一些认定疑义，已函请内政部厘清中。
But another local official involved, this one from Taoyuan, says they've all earned their positions legitimately.
我们当初来，我们是以两岸人民关系条例那我们也是正常的选举。我除了等待还是等待。目前谢谢大家的关心。
And so, as local governments decide what to do, a controversy getting at the heart of citizenship and what it means to be Taiwanese continues to unfold. Hank Xu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
3 current and former TSMC employees have been charged with threatening national security for allegedly trying to access classified chip technology data. The tech giant found that the suspects had tried to see files on its most advanced 2-nanometer chips. Prosecutors are now investigating the breach and whether data was leaked to other companies or overseas. Taiwan is the only country with this unique chip expertise, and highly specialized technologies are protected by the National Security Act. Heavy rain has battered southern Taiwan for more than a week, unleashing devastating floods and landslides that have left at least 5 people dead. Entire communities are cut off, homes have collapsed, and now, as the water recedes, the focus turns to recovery. Chris Gorin reports.
A family watches helplessly as part of their home collapses, its foundation washed out by floodwaters after more than a week of devastating rains across southern Taiwan. Flooding across the south has left several people dead and dozens injured or missing. Accumulated rainfall in Kaohsiung City reached over 2,800 millimeters, nearly surpassing the previous record during 2009's Typhoon Morakot. The water and subsequent landslides caused nearly $3 million in agricultural damage and washed out many roads. Entire communities, such as the indigenous villages in Kaohsiung's Namasha district, are now completely cut off, with local officials asking for urgent government assistance.
The
region's infrastructure is struggling to keep up.
一定要进行到至少要10米高以上的路基堤防提高的工程，这样子才可以解决。
During a visit to the disaster area, Taiwan's premier said a recovery command center set up for Jiayi and Tainan counties could accelerate government-funded reconstruction efforts.
我是期待我们这个前进指挥所能够更广泛的来透过这样的方式跟各地进行更多的媒合。
The Central Weather Administration has withdrawn a heavy rain advisory for Tuesday, so the region may get a much-needed respite. But the South now faces another challenge: recovery. Leon Lien and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Beijing has lifted its highest-level rain alert after heavy downpours forced the evacuation of over 82,000 people. Officials are urging residents to stay vigilant despite the improving weather. Last week, severe floods killed more than 40 people in suburban areas of Beijing. Meanwhile, torrential rain in Hong Kong has crippled public infrastructure, with schools and hospitals closing and over 100 flights delayed. It follows a weekend of flash flooding in neighboring Guangdong province that killed 5 people. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we leave you with images from the greatest gathering of trains celebrating 200 years of rail travel. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.